You know where you are!
This is Appetite for Distortion.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 396. My name is Brando. Welcome to the podcast, Mr. Kip Winger. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having.
I'm good. I didn't mean to step on you there. It's just testing out the audio with. I like to pull down the curtain and let people know what's going on. I mean, it's 2023. I'm troubleshooting Zoom and with Kip Winger. That in itself, I think, is a trip to share. I think it's pretty funny.
That's funny.
So, where are you located, if you don't mind me asking? Unless it's a secret,
No, I live in Nashville. I'm in LA right now.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I saw, and I appreciate you. Because I leave my number in my email, and I saw this number, and I know you record a lot, and you live in Nashville, and I saw the number from Nashville. I'm like, is that Kip Winger calling my cell phone?
Yeah.
And it was. So again, a small little trip because I am a fan, and there are a lot of things I want to talk to you about today, especially the new album that's coming out. And before I get into the new album, I kind of want to discuss, how do you feel, I guess, being here, putting out new music all these years later? Did you foresee this when you started? Did you knew right away that you wanted to be in music and that was your life path?
Oh yeah, totally. I was very young. I was in a band with my two brothers. My parents were in a jazz band. There was never any question whether I do music, and writing music is the main focus of my life. So I mean that's always been what I wanted to do and keep getting better at, and I'm kind of one of those artists where if I don't keep doing it, I'll really get depressed. So it's a very cathartic experience for me personally, and there's just no way I'll ever be able to stop. I'll never stop doing it.
One of the things that fascinates me about your career, which we've always, if you're a fan of Winger and Kip Winger, you've always known that you have the background in ballet and orchestral music, and I always found that fascinating. I know with some people it may have been, maybe not. In 2023, we look at everything through a different lens. In the 80s, different. My wife teaches ballet to little kids, so I look at it such a, yeah. So and we found out we're going to have a boy, and if he wants to learn ballet, I'll teach him the ways of Kip Winger. So I believe I'm not going to stop him with that.
Congratulations. Yeah, no, the idea for ballet is misunderstood by so many, but it's the height of great art in many ways, and ballet dancers give themselves to their art in a way that no one else does. It's their whole body is the art. There's not a lot of money in it. It's like they just give themselves 100% in every way to it. It's extraordinarily difficult and super challenging. So I mean, and it's very, very, it's artistic on a whole nother levels. So I was just attracted to it because it checked so many boxes for me, not the least of which was basically just to enhance my performing in a rock band. Because when I was young, my favorite guys were Paul Stanley, David Lee Roth, Freddie Mercury, Ian Anderson, these kind of guys that were really theatrical. So I figured I'd try to take it one step further,
Did it take a certain amount of confidence to do ballet at that time? Because again, looking at it through today's lens, it's not.
Not for me, no, because I didn't care what people thought. For me, it was cool because I understood what it really was, and I was never trying to get people to like me that way. I had a very clear artistic vision, and if people didn't understand it, that was their problem.
Well, I guess that's the confidence in it. And I think that's what's helped you with your career and how you have kept with music and composing I can't imagine the mindset. So like what came first, do you think? Composing your first piece of music or writing your first song? Like how does your brain is think is different than a lot of people's brains in the industry where you are? Because you find out there's a lot of famous rock people that don't read music and you write it, not just like everything. Just you get in there the nuts and bolts of the music. So how do you approach writing a song and how have you always approached it?
Well, I didn't always read. I didn't learn how to read orchestral scores until I was 35. I mean,
Okay.
I was a self-taught musician. I could read piano music because my mom got me a little piano course when I was 5 years old, and I did take piano. And when I was in my teens, I studied classical guitar, and so I could read some music, but I was never a great sight reader. I would say the opposite, actually. I would think any artist, and I'm no different. Artists, function in a way where they're trying to create, and so they're trying to create what they see or hear or feel, and so it really just depends on how complex the thing you hear or see or feel is to then set out to try to achieve that thing. In my case, I when I got exposed to classical music, I was started hearing the music. It triggered something in me where I was like, wow, that's way more complex than my skill set. So how do I get to this goal? And the only way to do it was to find a good teacher to start learning how to learn the language to, be able to express myself. It would probably be no different than a sculptor saying, oh my God, I want to try to do something like Michelangelo. Not that that would be something modern, but then you'd go, well, I've got to go learn how to do this. And you would go find a teacher to learn how to, shape the stone. I mean, and so, but on the other hand, that same sculptor might just make a weird abstract rock that didn't take any studying, and they would just do this weird thing that they thought, and they might have one and the other. That's how you would look at me. I self-taught songwriter, and then I went out of my way to learn a whole nother language, very similar to learning a foreign language,
Yes.
So, it's weird when people ask me that question, because for me it's very simple. But I guess if you don't do what I do, I guess it would be hard to understand it. But the easiest way to boil that down is just to say that I heard and saw very complex images in the art that I wanted to create, so I had to go out and find out how to create that.
Okay. See, because the reason I ask is I'm not musically talented, which is why I went to a career in radio. But in my undergrad, where I went to radio classes, I did take very preliminary, seeing if I had any rock star in me, like remedial music reading, things like that. And it is like another language. It is something that, okay, if I don't have the talent to play an acoustic guitar, which I tried and failed, maybe I can read, I can do that. That wasn't the path. I couldn't do it either. It was very difficult because I was also not very good at Spanish and French. I'm lucky I could speak English, I guess let's just put it that way.
Me too, dude. Hey, by the way, I've got a lot of what I would call learning disabilities. I'm really super dyslexic. When I look at a piece of like a page in a book, I see it all at once. I can't like it takes. I have to force myself to read it, like left to right, and I don't remember what I do. Like when I write classical music, I'm kind of in a trance, and so then when I start my next piece, or when I'm in the middle of a piece, I can't remember how I got there so well, So there's a lot of learning disabilities that I've had to overcome, and really, keep a commitment to trying to stay focused on this one thing, because especially nowadays when you're in your phone, it's like, so Instagram, man.
Yeah, I know.
I'm an Instagram junkie, man.
Yeah.
So I find it really hard to put it down because I'm like watching huskies go for all day long, and there's so many distractions in life now. So, but
Yeah.
anyway, um, I'm really like a big proponent of all artists. I feel that we're all the same, like what I do is no different than everybody else, and it's just the genres are different, but the process is I would say very similar across the board, man.
And I always like to get out of the guest questions that I feel like I need to, and my listeners, of course, want to identify with. And that is where, I can identify with that with struggling to maybe focus on something at a time, and it impacts you in your whole learning process. And if you forget because you're in a trance, I mean, I totally get that. I believe I just have an undiagnosed learning disability. It has to be. It has to be. But I talk about my
I'm like,
mental health all the time.
Totally, man. I'm like bordering on Asperger's, and it's like, I'm always lost in my head somewhere and that kind of. I mean, it's funny. I haven't really said that in public before, but it's kind of, that's. I've alluded to it, but I mean, I'm always like somewhere in a dream in my head,
I appreciate you sharing.
But I feel like that's important too, because I feel like who's to say what life existing as a human being, who's to say what the rules are? Why can't you just live in a dream? I mean,
sounds like a song.
Well, it is actually, there is a song on our new album called It's Okay, and
get that.
Just ride the lightning because we're all living in a dream,
Oh, look at that. And this, I would pretend like I did that on purpose, but it is a perfect segue into the new album, which comes out May 5th, entitled 7. And we have the new video out now, a new single, Proud Desperado. So what is that like? I kind of get a sense of, is it almost kind of an autobiography where you're this proud cowboy that has made it all these years and has taken the slings and the arrows? What's it about to you?
No, it's really, it's
Okay.
more about, it's about, the symptom of our, kind of struggling times where people get guided and misguided hopes and dreams, and they go wrong, leaders that lead you down a path and then abandon you, and people stay and believe, and then they get abandoned by these people that give them all these great hopes, and it's kind of like people that believe in things. And by the way, some people that believe in things that just are a little bit hardcore, maybe January 6th or Ukraine or Iran. I mean, there's a lot of places you could point to that could serve this song, but it's really not about anything in particular.
Okay.
It's you could reference any point in time in civilization where, leaders have led you down the wrong path, and then they leave you hanging and you're screwed,
Okay. All right. So I was wrong about that. However, my ears won't deceive me. And I mean this was a shock in a good way. I couldn't believe how heavy this first song is. Because people might think of Winger, and I know it's more than 17 and headed for a heartbreak as someone who's a fan, but this was like a little heavier than I expected, and I really dug it. So what's the vibe of the new record and that single? What was the feeling of putting that out first, this heavy Winger first, which sounds like you, but definitely it rips. It's good.
It's funny that people, I mean, if you've listened to things like Pull, like Junkyard Dog, and on, Karma, there was a lot of heavy stuff, and we're, I mean, if I remixed the first album, it would be much heavier. it was produced in a lighter kind of way because of the going times. But I can't answer to that really, because I hear it the same as I did all my music, just two guitars, bass, and drums, and you turn in. We didn't make the guitars more distorted on this than we did on anything else. I could compare it to a song on every album. Maybe not the second album. The second album was a little lighter, but definitely the third album. In some ways, it's not as heavy as the third album. I don't know if you know that album, Pull.
Not overly familiar. I'm not going to pretend. While I like Winger, it's Guns N' Roses where I know every song. I'm not going to pretend to know I know every single Winger song.
No, that's fine. That's fine. But check out Junkyard Dog on Pull, and you'll be surprised at how heavy we've actually been since the early '90s. But what I do is I produce a song that I feel like is appropriate to the song itself. So I don't go, we're going to be heavy. I don't do that. I kind of produce the music in a way that I feel is appropriate for the actual track. You know what I mean?
Well, that's interesting because again, I'm learning here. While I do I've always said this in several interviews. While I have my knowledge of just being in radio for 20 years and just liking the music and preparing, I was listening to Winger just on iHeartRadio, just a mix while I was doing the dishes. So a nice solid half an hour, 45 minutes listening to Winger make it go a lot quicker. But it's not like I know everything, so I want to be taught. So this kind of is a nice intersection of things where say you may not remember certain things, and also just of that classic Winger that even a fan, and not as I'm going to be more of a hardcore fan after this. Side note, I love when interviews make me more of a fan of the person. And
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's always risky when you meet people that you like their work, and then they're an asshole. I mean, that's always a little risky.
Yeah, I mean, not too many of them, but I can see it can just be a straight interview. It's not like it's a date where sparks need to fly, but there's something about him like, I really like this guy. I really like this person, what they're about, and I can see, us. I don't drink. I was gonna say having a beer, but the old cliche. But I can just see.
Drink either, man. I haven't had a drink since 2012.
Well, Mazel Tov. It's been 7 years for me. Yeah. So, stay in school, kids. I don't know where that came from. But yeah, no, it is the learning process. So that's why I'm excited to, with this new album, kind of revisit Winger, because there are a lot of bands that a lot of fans that may. It's here's where the tie-in. I say I'm having Kip Winger on. I hate to say it, but people are still bringing up Beavis and Butthead all this time. What have they been up to? So it's kind of like, it's great. Like I, even as a fan, know you've been touring. My still current friend, former co-host Ian Scotto, has seen you in concert recently, I believe up in Connecticut, one of your solo gigs, and says how phenomenal you were. So I've been, I'm aware you've been busy, but not everyone is. So I'm learning.
Well, I mean, people don't pay attention. I mean, I haven't stopped. I mean,
right.
This is our 7th Winger album. I've got 4 solo albums, 3 studio solo albums, and 1 acoustic album. 4 solo albums. I have a classical record.
Well, I guess here's where it's the segue is. Do you feel, and maybe it's justified here as I'm just trying to figure out what I'm trying to express. Do you feel that your music is not just in your body work, it's not just underappreciated, but maybe it went underappreciated, but now it finally is, when you see bands like how successful Def Leppard and Motley Crue have been, a lot of bands from your era have been. Do you feel any revitalization and people looking back at that era more fondly? Because all they saw was the hair and the gimmick, and now they don't realize, again, your background. They don't realize that, perhaps.
You know what? I don't even think about it. I mean, my thing is like, I like to write music, and I do, I've got a band that we did pretty well, and we still have quite a few fans. We were never as big as Def Leppard, so I mean, that's never going to be in the cards. We continued to make albums. My guitar player was in Whitesnake for a long time, so he'd be touring with them. So I was doing my own thing. I've developed a whole nother career in classical music. And like I say, my objective was as a composer, writing songs and classical stuff, and like, um, having my like deathbed scenario. Like when I look back at my life, what do I have wanted to achieve? And it's a whole big long list of having written this work, that work, this work, that work. So I've just stayed the course of writing music. There was a long period of time in that whole era when grunge hit and we were totally uncool. I just kept writing music because that's really what my goal always was. You can't, you know, you can't freak out on things you can't control. I mean, Winger became a toxic name in the 90s. It lasted a very long time. But I had no control over that. The only thing I had control of was how much better of a musician I was going to become. And that's really what I set out to do.
I admire that so much, and I think it's such a viewpoint where we were obviously talking about earlier with social media. And if I wasn't in radio, and I'd want to get rid of it. I'd be on Instagram instead of seeing dogs barking. I would it's all cat videos for me. I have to make sure I like enough cat videos to break up all the BS that I see. But
Yeah.
fans, we can be toxic. So every time I see like a Nickelback article come out, and I'm like, are they getting the Winger treatment? Because I'm a fan of Nickelback. I'm a fan of Winger. I'm a fan of Creed. I'm a fan of these bands that don't deserve it.
Well, Nickelback made great records. I mean, they sound incredible. They're really great records. I mean, I don't care what anyone says. I mean, people probably got sick of them because they became so popular. But the difference with Nickelback and us is that Nickelback got paid, man. They made it really, really big. We never made it that big. We kind of came in the end of the era, and the era was over by the time we were just getting ready to get started. That was, if I had one regret in my career, was that Winger actually never got to become who they could have been. Having said that, without what happened to us, I would have probably never been nominated for a Grammy in classical composition.
Right.
So, like I say, you can't worry about the things you can't control. I mean, you just can't.
I need to hear that. That's part of this, why I do this. I needed to hear that from Kip Winger, because sometimes I obsess over the things that I can't control, and it's I have to take several moments to bring myself out of that. So I guess I wonder if you've ever taken the opportunity to take things and spin it on its head and control, because I love the fact that you really don't let things affect you. I mean, is it a coincidence that there's new Winger and Beavis and Butthead coming out in 2023? Is there a coincidence at all?
No, I mean, no, I mean, I thought that was coming out a long time ago. I thought that was out. I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
second season. It's the second season.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't pay attention to it. Yeah, I mean, doesn't even register on my radar. I mean, I'm just doing my thing. It was time for us to make a new record because Reb was much more available. My drummer's almost 70. We're kind of like, let's make a new record and let's go make another round, and really push for a few years and then, because like I say, I've got a lot of other things going on, and I need a lot of time to compose the music that I want to compose, and touring takes a lot of time. So I'm trying to just juggle my time, and this was the right time to do it. So, and again, my band is always friends. We never got in fights with each other. We were never in legal battles. We always just had a lot of laughs, and we enjoy each other's company. And it's fun to play with those guys. I mean, I'm on stage with these incredible musicians, kind of like thinking, wow, every night Reb plays the solo to Head of Her Heartbreak, and it blows my mind every single night. So, I mean,
that's unheard of. That really is unheard of, to last that long and to still make new music and be friends. That really is just, it's something special to come out of that era. Is one of the many things to be proud of.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
we're not U2 or anything, but look at U2. I mean, they've been together, same original members. That very, I can only imagine. I've never heard anything weird about them. They're out doing their thing. We're kind of like they are in terms of like original members still like each other. It's great hang. It's never this stuff. Well, so and so suing each other behind their back, and you hear all this crap, but they're going out on the road because they're going to make a bunch of money. We enjoy it, and it's worth it for us to do it. We still have enough fans where we can do it economically, and I'd love to tour Europe, but for example, economically, it doesn't work for us in Europe, and a lot of bands either. I mean, I know Anthrax canceled their tour because it's just so expensive.
Godsmack. It is difficult.
No,
Absolutely.
it's
But
really
you
hard. I mean, we're really lucky to be able to still tour, and we played, to 1,500 people in Las Vegas last week, and it was great.
Right on. I love it. And just to kind of, while I got you here, I want to ask, pick your brain about certain things, certain points, because there's so many things again to talk to you about in your career. People should know if you're listening to this podcast, you started out in the Alice Cooper band, which is pretty special. This is according to a listener of mine, Ken, did you play with them because obviously Guns N' Roses is a band that has had a lot of changes, quite the opposite of Winger. Were you at that show when Axl didn't show up? And I forget what year that was. It was like before Appetite was released.
Was Alice Cooper?
Yeah, the GN'R was supposed to open. For
Yeah,
Alice.
I think I was actually. Yeah, they opened a few shows for Alice. I don't remember that in particular. I was really not paying attention, man. But maybe I was. I don't actually remember that, but I do remember them opening. That's how Winger was born. I mean, Tesla was opening and Megadeth, and I was thinking, man, I did this when I was 16 with my brothers playing Black Sabbath. I mean, let's put a band together. Like, I was already doing much more sophisticated music, like Peter Gabriel kind of vibe. And I kind of had a come to Jesus moment where it was like, man, I grew up on this. Let's do this, And then, ironically, I've gotten back to all the sophisticated stuff now. But yeah, I mean, hey, Guns N' Roses, Welcome to the Jungle. I mean, that's classic rock song of all time, man.
Any it's what I call 6 degrees of GNR bacon there. Do you know any of the guys? Perhaps saw them in there. Again, I mean, you may not remember seeing GNR open when you were with Alice Cooper, but do you have any early memories with them?
Well, I remember doing press conferences where they were in one room and we were the other, and Duff McKagan and I were kind of buddies, and he actually invited me to do an album at one point. And I was like, well, what are we going to do? We're both bass players, but he's super nice guy. He was kind of drunk back then, but he's since become totally sober and stuff. And can't say I know him well, but the interactions I had with him were awesome. He's amazing. He's a great dude. I mean, I've met Slash and I jammed with Slash with Alice Cooper about 4 years ago. I mean, all the experiences I had were really cool. I mean, I've never met Axl, so I don't know about him, but he's Axl Rose. So what are you going to do?
That's a good way to put it to place. You're Kip Winger. What are you going to do? Again, congratulations on
listen, I don't consider myself a rock star. I mean, I was never in a rock star mentality. My thing is like, on my grave, I just want it to be a good musician. That's it. When we made it, I was like, okay, this will go away at any point. I never was like, I'm a fucking, I'm a rock star. I was never like that. I always, kind of kind of thinking, okay, what's the arrangement in this song? Like, to the point where I didn't even understand what it was to have a cool T-shirt. That's how much of a music nerd I am. I was like all about the arrangements, the riffs, the melody, the lyrics, that kind of thing.
But even with that, if I can ask, and I say this as a happily married man, I mean, you're still a good looking guy. So even with all that education and intelligence behind you, you play girl. I mean, do you do you regret that at all, or is that something like, do you look at it like, look at me, look at this article. This was a cool, fun time in my life to be a rock star.
Well, I mean, they asked me to do that as a fashion shoot. I probably wouldn't do it. I would, if I had to do it over again, I probably wouldn't do it. But it was just me with a model doing some clothing stuff. It was and everything was happening so fast back then. It was like I didn't even notice it. It was like one thing after the next. But it's funny. I got a call from Bill Aucoin, the manager of Kiss and Billy Idol. It was like, man, what the fuck are you thinking? That cover is so not rock and roll. And I think Steven Tyler had done the cover of that too. And he looked so much cooler. He's like, why didn't you do it like Steven Tyler? I'm like, because I ain't Steven Tyler, dude. I didn't get it, But yeah, I mean, I don't regret anything I did. I might not have done it if I had to do it over, but I don't regret it. I mean,
yeah, that's probably a better way of phrasing it. I don't mean to ask if you regret it, but I'm more of like, how do you view it now? Because
I don't even think about it. I mean, hardly.
Sorry, a stupid media asked.
Every once in a while, I'll sign one of those covers, but.
And I guess another thing, because I if I can ask why I have you here, and I hope we get to do this again.
I want to answer one other thing. I had a conversation about this with Steve Vai, because I had a conversation that I'm about to put out on my YouTube channel with Steve Vai. Steve Vai is a very literate classical composer. And he writes all that stuff, just like Frank Zappa, right? Coming out of the Frank Zappa school. Steve is a really great, literate, incredible classical composer. But Steve's also a self-admitted ham, where he wants to put on the weird clothes, and be a very flamboyant rock star, because his parents, when he was a kid, exposed him to like West Side Story and this kind of things. He was really about the showbiz, but he's also a very, very serious composer. And I'm exactly the same way, man. Like, I'm very serious about composing, but I like to be a ham. It's like there's a theater element to all of this, where I feel comfortable putting on the glittery suit with the weird glasses and going, all right. But there's also the artist, the serious artist, and, so him and I are really kindred spirits in that way. And I think there's a lot of people like that. And when you make it bigger at one thing, people can't compute this. They want to pigeonhole you into, hey, he's Mr. 17. And, and I'm going, yeah, so is Paul McCartney, by the way, because, she was just 17. And I'm like, we're all fucking following the Beatles, And so, I mean, if you're worried about that lyric, call up McCartney and ask him if he feels strange about it singing it at 75. I mean, just showbiz,
Yeah, I figured that was going to kind of organically come up on its own, that question. And yeah, my wife and I are huge Beatles fans. We talk about it. I told her exactly,
Kiss does Christine 16. I did an interview this morning in Sweden. They're like, I don't know what the deal is. Legal age of consent in Sweden is 15. It's like, okay.
I don't want to have that conversation here in America. No.
Well, no, I'm not saying anything about it.
I know you're not.
I'm just saying people like, oh, how dare you sing this song? I'm like, it's a pop song, man. It was just a funny pop song. I stole the lyric from Kingdom Come. They had a song on their album called 17, and I was writing the song and I was out of ideas. So I just was like, let me take that title,
I like it. And
I'm not precious about anything I've written. It's like, Yeah, that could have been better, or that was a good one. Like just you just make another one. I never ever listen to the songs I've written ever. I put an album out and I never listened to it ever
Oh
again.
wow. So you haven't listened to the a seven at all? Like now that it's done?
I'm listening to that like for it to check the video levels and stuff like that. But no, I never listened to anything I've ever.
Okay. Well, I mean, you said a word earlier, which is stuck with me. It's complex, and you have that kind of the beautiful complexity of your career, where you're able to just have a fun pop song like 17 and compose these orchestras. I mean, that's just a right brain, left brain in a lack of a better analogy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like if you, it's like a discussion about global warming or a discussion about taking a walk on the beach. It's
Yeah.
just
Yes, I got that one too. And just real quickly, and I probably know the answer. Still no contact and finding out why because it's just a classic rock thing. Why Lars threw those darts at your head all those years ago in the video.
no, man. You can see a video on Howard Stern where he's going, man, I threw darts at Kip, but I did, it was nothing personal, and he's never apologized. But James Hetfield called me about a year and a half ago and apologized for the incident. And James was really cool, and I could, James is the kind of guy I could totally be friends with. Um, and he was very sincere, and it wasn't like he just called to apologize and then blow me off. He's actually texted me a few times. We text every now and then. I don't think Lars would ever call me to apologize, but uh, I don't, I think everybody was just young kids and they were thinking it was funny. To me, it's not funny to slag off a fellow musician. Um, but who knows? I mean, they were just doing what they were doing. I mean, I don't know. I can't answer to that, but
I appreciate you sharing that, because at the end of the day, it's none of our business. It's not like James made that public, and I think that is very cool, because yeah, I'll put out I'm interviewing Kip and I'll see comments of just Beavis and Butthead or that, and it bothers me just on a personal level. Be like, this guy's more than that. A lot of these, I mentioned Nickelback, they're more than that. There shouldn't be slings and arrows in the rock community. We should all support each other. And I
that's
love
just
Beavis and Butthead, and I love Winger. I love Metallica. It's just like
Beavis and Butthead was hysterical. It was really funny. I ended up on the wrong end of it. I think that's just gang mentality.
yeah.
My computer's going to die here. I'm
Anyway,
going to go.
I know I've kept you
Oh
long
no,
enough.
it's okay. My computer's battery is gone. It might die. But the point is that, gang mentality, people want to hide and especially in the internet, they can hide behind their keyboard and go, that guy sucks. But if I was in the room with the guy, he'd be like, hey man, how's it going? Can I get your, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think it's a great practice to slag your fellow artists. Everybody has their opinion. Hey, and there's bands that I don't like. I mean, necessarily. So I mean, I don't.
And I'm not going to ask you about them. No worries. You don't have to tell
No,
me.
it's not. No, but the point is that the older I get, the more I realize what goes into this stuff.
Okay.
So there isn't any band that I don't like where I can't appreciate what work they've put into it, because I don't care who you are. If you've taken the time to get your song on a record and put it out there and made a video, you worked hard on that. I don't care if it's good or bad to me, whatever, it doesn't matter. You put a lot of work into that, and I can respect that on every level,
And I respect that mindset, and I really respect the amount of time you've given me today, Kip.
Oh,
Because
thank you.
I really
Great, thank you.
appreciate it. It's one of those interviews I've become more of a fan of the person. So I'm going to give Paul a listen. 1993, I was 10. So it's
Yeah.
I may have missed that Winger. So I knew that it was like Beavis and Butthead, but I loved the hair metal anyway. It never deterred
Check
me.
it out. I mean, Pull is a big album for us, fan wise, and so is Karma.
I admit it.
And what I would say is that our songs, in my opinion, our songs kept getting better, and that's not because I wrote them. It's because and some of them are classics, like Headed for Heartbreak is one of the best songs I've ever written to this day, and I've written a lot of songs after it. But there's a lot of good songs on our newer stuff. Some that aren't as good, but definitely check it out anyway. But thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And just so people know, I mean, I have a lot of listeners over in the UK. You're touring with the Steel Panther back here in the States, and people all over that listen. I've had Tom Kiefer on the podcast as well. So you're touring with them, and a bunch of headline dates as well. So just go to Winger Online, all the social media platforms, including Kip's favorite, Instagram, for more updates, right?
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When will you see the next one? In the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.